Now, Thomson Reuters has compiled its 2018 Diversity and Inclusion Index rank for most diverse companies across the globe. Joining us now with the particulars of the index is Candice Dott, who is Africa Head of Market Development, and as well as the Head of Corporate Responsibility and Inclusion at Thomson Reuters. Candice, thanks. I didn't realize you had such a long title. They keep you busy there.
They do. Hi, Fifi. How are you?
Great. Right. So how does South Africa rank in this year's index?
So really exciting. In fact, there are 4 entrants. This is the 3rd time that we've actually run the index.
Sure.
And yeah, I'm really proud to be announcing the fact that Woolworths is ranked 24th, Vodacom 42nd, Clicks Group 58th, and Nedbank 95th out of the top 100, which is pretty impressive given the fact that the index overall looks at in excess of 7,000 listed global companies. So very impressive use of ESG data, so environmental, social governance data.
Right.
Approximately 400 different metrics whittled down into 24 broader segments in 4 categories.
Sure.
And those categories involve diversity, inclusion, people development, and news and controversies.
I mean, like we were just discussing this off air. I was looking at the companies that feature prominently on the list in the top 100, and it's mainly retailers or FMCG companies and even technology companies, the likes of Microsoft and all that. Where are, in South Africa's context particularly, aside from Nedbank, where are the banks, where are the financial companies, where are the mining companies? What is it saying about inclusion or the lack thereof in those sectors?
It's definitely not a lack thereof. I'd like to just highlight that this index looks at the data that's publicly made available. So it's probably really a call to action to highlight to the mining companies and to a number of banks that are peers of Nedbank to make sure that they understand the index that we've created, and we're happy to work with them and actually help them identify what the criteria are and what it is that we're actually looking for in terms of the index. It's very transparent and everything's available and disclosable.
I mean, the role of ESG, would you say that it's growing in prominence, particularly when investors are looking at, where to place their money?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I spend almost 90% of my time on the topic of corporate responsibility and inclusion now across Africa. And why I say that is as it pertains to the data around that topic. So it's looking at how to help corporates and also exchanges. The exchanges have done a tremendous job, and I'd really like to compliment the Johannesburg Stock Exchange for how hard they've worked with their corporate members for disclosure purposes. So a lot of that ESG data now is highly looked at from a global perspective, from a local perspective in terms of impact investment, looking at sustainable investment and exactly what types of investments we need to be making now for our future.
I mean, impact investing, though, I just find that companies are finding it, hard to navigate impact investing and CSI, and how do you marry the two? I mean, what are you seeing on the ground in your line of work?
So data helps, and I think it's partly down to, if you actually look at some of the metrics that we use, it's understanding policies, it's understanding a lot of that unstructured data. So remember, quite a lot of the ESG reporting and corporate social responsible reporting is information that's released post the financial statements. We're very used to data that's quantifiable. We're not so used to dealing with unstructured, qualitative data. And I find in the ESG space, a lot of these metrics are actually in and within that unstructured context. So helping companies actually make sure that they take out what's relevant in the unstructured sense and give it to analysts who are able to make quantifiable analysis from it is really helping drive the momentum behind how one actually does peer-to-peer comparability and country-to-country comparability.
Just as we wrap up, Candice, do you think this inclusion now of Woolworths and Vodacom and Nedbank, or is Nedbank retaining its spot, right? So do you think that now this is because of the wider narrative now in South Africa that's talking about we need to be radically transform, or we need inclusive growth? And are you expecting more South African companies to feature on the list because of government's call that the economy grow inclusively?
So I'd like to think that a lot of the companies in South Africa are already paying great attention to the topic.
Okay.
I think the point is it's about making that information publicly available for people both locally and internationally to be able to make sense of that information and use it for purposes of investment. So whether it be domestic investment or foreign direct investment, I think this is an important metric. We want equal and diverse communities and companies.
All right, and I see that Reuters is possibly working to use some of this data to help the investment community create investable or ESG investable products. What do you mean by that? What does that look like?
So it really is, to simplify that for the viewers, it's looking at the ETF space, so exchange traded fund space. And it's actually looking at globally, they do quite a lot of this already, where they'll actually look at trend parameters or theme-based parameters that help underline what the ETF will track. So this could be, and actually is currently being used as an investable index for an ETF instrument in globally, but not necessarily locally yet. We don't have any ETFs that track ESG principles.
How long
yet.
do you think we'll have to wait?
I asked Narina Fisser that question the other day, and it's also, again, I think the ability to be able to use the data and for the index providers locally to use it in such a way that they can quickly create instruments off the back of it.
All right, Candice, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your time. That was Candice Dott, who is the Africa Head of Market Development, as well as the Head of Corporate Responsibility and Inclusion at Thomson Reuters.